Today we have a special guest. We've all been waiting for an investment class, and Mike Swenson from Minnesota has been eagerly awaiting to teach y'all about real estate investing. And so thank you guys for being here. If you guys could save your questions for the end, unless Mike asks questions, that would be great. Mike, people are going to trickle in because that's what happens with this group. And then this will be recorded. So if you guys want a recording later, that would be great. So Mike has been in the business since 2014. He ran a top icon team, one of the top expansionist teams in the country in Minnesota with the Gores. And he is a real estate investor. He has a top rated podcast that he's been running for about 3 years, and he has an investment mastermind. So, Mike, thank you for coming. We are very excited to learn from you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then the floor is yours. We have an hour.
Yeah, sure. So my story is, I started, so I worked for a nonprofit for 10 years. And I had the luxury of buying right as the market crashed. And so my wife and I got a townhouse, and I remember we were so excited because we purchased it in 2006. It was built 2 years prior, and we paid less than what they bought it for 2 years before that. And so I thought, oh, we're getting a really good deal. And then watched as the market continued to tank, and the value of our property was half of what we bought it for. And all of our neighbors foreclosed and had short sales and took off. And so at that point, I kind of had a decision to make. It was number one, we'd stay there. So I worked for a nonprofit. My wife was actually getting her master's degree. She was a therapist, so she was nannying kind of full-time, part-time. So we don't really have much money. And so I was like, well, we can continue to stay in this townhouse, or we can try to find a way to figure something out, move to a different property, and maybe rent it out. And so I talked to a lender and I said, here's what I'm looking to do. Is this something that's possible or not? And he looked at it and he said, well, based on debt to income ratio, you're like right on the edge where we could still get you another property. You'd qualify for it. But I wasn't necessarily ready to take the risk yet. So I kind of looked at the next step in the process, which was who would I want to rent to? Because I didn't want to just rent it to anybody. And so it turns out my wife had some friends that she knew from her therapy job that she kind of did on the side while she was getting her master's degree, and they were looking for a townhouse to rent. So we lined it all up. We were going to move out. We ended up buying a short sale property that I fixed up. And then they rented from us. And so we ended up holding on to that property. So bought it in 2006, turned it into a rental in about 2010, 2011, and then rented it out and sold it in January of 22. And so it took that long for the value to get, I mean, the value got a little bit past. I would say it took a good 10 years, 10 to 12 years for the value to get past. So outside of real estate, that was kind of my real estate journey before I was in real estate full time. I also did a flip, kind of similarly. I had run the numbers. It was for my brother-in-law. He was looking for a place to live, and so I said, well, okay, if I buy it for this, fix it up, and he rents it for this, is that something that I could make work? So we made that work. So we did a flip there. And that's actually how I paid off my college loans, was through that flip property. So that was in 2013, 2012, I think. So that's my background in real estate before I got into real estate, and then joined full-time on the admin side in 2014. So did not have my license, but I ran the back-end operations of a real estate team up until 2020. And then I started my own team, and then slowly shifted over to working exclusively with investor clients. So about spring 21 is when that happened. And then just a couple months ago, merged my team into a much larger team, and we launched an investment division that I am the one leading, along with a good friend of mine, another Mike. We're affectionately known as the Mikes in the group, but he was on my past team. We came over together. And then the other cool thing is, so just on Friday, we closed on a 20-unit apartment building that was made up of 14 investors, 10 of which were agents on our team. And so now 10 agents on our team have some of them have invested previously, but 10 of them now are investors in a 20-unit apartment because of the work that we did. We set it up as a syndication. And so that's kind of where we're at today. So I help investors buy properties. A lot of used to be duplexes to fourplexes. Now they're looking into more smaller apartment buildings. And then I also partner with investors on properties. So we have a 25-unit apartment, this 20-unit, and then we have a short-term rental in upstate New York. So that's my background.
Love it. Very impressive and really cool that you're able to help real estate agents invest. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so what I found is people in real estate, it's not necessarily just because they're in residential real estate, they're not necessarily interested or really know how to get into investing. It's almost like two separate worlds. And this is what I find interesting, because a lot of the investors that I talk to, work a job outside of real estate and then get into investing. They just jump right in. And we've got agents that have been in real estate for a short time or a long time, and it's like they just don't necessarily know what to do to find an investment property. So my passion really is helping agents to invest themselves and potentially see how working with investors can help their business. So I launched, so I have a podcast. It's called Real Freedom. It's REL, stands for Real Estate Leverage Freedom. I launched that back in 2020. But I interview people that are doing different things in real estate. A lot of them are investors now. But it's really just talking about how people can build wealth through different opportunities in real estate. But kind of going to the investment side, when I talk to agents, it's like, I'm really busy in my residential side. It's almost like I have to try to compartmentalize and like turn off my agent business to then focus on investing. And so that's really a challenge. And so my concern with agents is, you have a really good opportunity sitting in front of you to build wealth. I think the stat is, real estate's created more millionaires than any other industry. We're already in this industry. We've got to figure out a way to utilize the skills that we have. We have all the information in front of us. It's just taking the time and being intentional to learn a little bit, take some risks, and move forward to invest in real estate. And so, so along with that, what I encourage people to do is, put some goals together. Maybe it's an hour a week, maybe it's 2 hours a week, maybe it's an hour a month. But just figure out a way to start to learn more about the investment side of real estate while you're still doing your regular residential business, because you have the opportunity to then reap the rewards down the road. And so part of the reason why I made the jump into working with investors is I figured that would really help me to accelerate things. And so what I tell people is essentially my day job is now my night job. So for a lot of agents on the residential side, it's like I'm working my residential job, and then at night, maybe I try to build my real estate rental portfolio. But I figured if I can just do that, I'm double dipping my time. And so it was kind of a strategic decision for me of, if I want to invest in real estate long term, if I just work with investors, now I gain all the skills of finding properties, analyzing deals, working with lenders that may focus on investment properties, and be able to do all that at the same time. And so even though I've been doing this almost exclusively now for 2.5 years, there's so much that I don't know about investing in real estate, but I'm willing to learn and willing to take risks, which is the key. And so and I tell people, because a lot of times I get asked, how do I get started? There's really first things first, I would think through, um, what do I want out of it? And I understand you may not know that yet. It might be a challenge to know, like, am I looking for X amount of dollars per month? Am I looking for X amount of dollars per year, or assets under management? What might that look like? But really think about what you want out of it, and then think about what time are you willing to invest? Or there's a lot of great real estate agents out there that you can be completely passive. And so you don't have to flip and do all of that work. Because I think a lot of times people think, well, if I want to invest in real estate as an agent, I've got to become a flipper, and then I got to learn how to do that. I got to work with contractors, and I don't know anything about HVAC systems and electrical and plumbing. So what do I do? But you don't have to do that. There's good property managers out there, or folks that find deals and put together these deals, and you can just partner with them completely passively. And so one of the exercises that I kind of walk through with people is, it's a kind of a, if you think about it like a triangle. And so on each side of the triangle, you have time, you have money, and you have expertise. And so you're thinking about, right now, myself, what do I have to offer in those three areas as it relates to building a real estate investment portfolio? And so time, money, and expertise. So time, as a real estate agent, we might have some time to be able to devote to that. It's carving little chunks of time. I get it. Real estate agents are busy, but I would also challenge that thought, where, if I really want to go hit my goals later in life, if I want to live a life where I have passive income coming in, am I willing to invest some of that time now to go do that? And so that was a decision for me where, I'm looking more for the long-term solution. So it might mean giving up some commissions. It might mean giving up some sales now to go learn how to do that. But as an agent, I at least have control over my time, and how I choose to spend it. And so think through that, like, what am I, kind of where am I at? What might I be able to devote to it right now? Money. So, depending on your current financial situation, you may or may not have some money, but maybe you find some people that do have money. And I'll get to that in a second. And then kind of the third piece is expertise. Well, if I don't have a lot of expertise in flipping or investing in real estate, there's a lot of people that do. And so it's finding time, taking some of that time and investing in your education to learn that. I've paid a lot of money. I've spent a lot of time, even as I work with investors, being kind of the dumbest person in the room trying to learn. I remember I didn't know anything about how to invest in apartment buildings. I didn't know anything about how to invest in a real estate syndication, or to put a real estate syndication together, or what a real estate syndication even is. But we just did one last week. That took time to make that happen. So it's being willing to be dumb, being willing to be, kind of that dumbest person in the room to get smarter, or partner with people that do have that expertise. And so where I was going with that is, as you think about where you're at on those three sides, then you look for, who's somebody that can fill the void, who's kind of the yin to your yang. And so if I have a lot of time available to devote to growing my real estate investing business, well, then I'm probably looking for somebody who's a fit, who doesn't have a lot of time. And so my time, I'm investing my time because the person I'm partnering with doesn't have time. If I don't have a lot of money, or even if I do have money, there's a ton of people out there that value people that know what they're doing on the investment side of real estate and are willing to invest their money in that. And so, yeah, the agents on our team invested in that deal, but we also had four other people that, don't work in real estate and invested their money in that deal because they don't want to know anything about investing in real estate. They don't want to have to, they need to know enough to know it's a good investment, but they don't have to find the deal, manage the deal, do any of that. It's completely passive. And so they were willing to put their money into the deal, that we brought to them, simply because we said, hey, here's the deal, here's what it looks like, and we're going to update them every month while we hold that 20 unit property until it sells. And that's the amount of time the way that it's set up, they literally can't make a decision. And so they're willing to invest their money into something that they don't have a say in how it goes, but they're trusting us to do that. So on the money, and even too on the money side, even if you do have money, if you want to grow, finding somebody to partner with that also has money could be a way that you could grow faster. And so a lot of people think like I have to save up, let's just say $100,000 to buy a $400,000 property for a rental. Well, you don't have to do that. You can invest with a little amount. The investment that we had for the 20-unit apartment deal, the smallest amount was $5,000. So we had people that invested for $5,000 and are able to grow that. Um, and then the last piece on the triangle is expertise. So you may not have a lot of expertise at the beginning as it relates to investing in real estate or working with investors. So that's where, talking to other people that are more experienced. That's a big reason why I do my podcast as well. A lot of it is I love interviewing people in all various aspects of real estate, but I also get to learn about things. So I just had somebody that came on and talked about how they're investing in car washes. Now they hold a bunch of multifamily apartment buildings and all that, but they're also growing through car washes, mobile home parks, all these different things. And I get to network with them and learn from them because maybe it's something I do want to do in the future. And so finding other people that are experts out there. And so there's a lot of great people out there. So if you don't know a lot, go find somebody that knows more in that particular space. If you want to flip, fantastic. Go find somebody who flips and learn from them. Um, don't be afraid to invest some money into some courses as well. I know you could probably spend any money you ever make on real estate courses because everybody's willing to sell them to you. So it's finding the right people that add the most value and have a good strategic relationship for long-term success. But I invested some money into some courses to be able to try to learn faster than I did now. So think about those three sides and think about kind of where you're at, and then maybe find some people out there that might be strong where you're weak, and how you can add value. So as an example, one of the investor partners that we have works in a different industry, has invested in real estate before, but doesn't have any time. And so he's like, Mike, I don't have time to manage this. I don't have time to deal with this. Like, I need to trust you enough to be able to do it. However, once we built the relationship, he knows that we're for our word. Like we'll do a good job, and we'll have the hard conversation too. We had an apartment complex. We were going to get kicked off of our insurance because the apartment building had fuses for electrical instead of breakers. Well, over the last year or two, as insurance has changed a lot, there's a lot of insurance carriers out there that are saying, nope, we're no longer going to insure properties that have fuses on them for large scale apartments. So when we first purchased this property, we had to pay more for insurance because it had breakers. And the thought was over the next year or two, we would eventually get that work done. But then we came up for renewal 12 months later, and we got a quote, and the quote was 140% higher than it was the previous year. And so I was like, oh crap, this really stinks. What are we going to do? And so we said, well, let's just fast track this. We'll get the policy, we'll fast track the work, and then see if we can update the insurance. And so that was going to be the original plan. And then 2 weeks later, the insurer came back to us and said, actually, we're not going to issue that insurance for 12 months, but we will issue a temporary policy for 30 days. And every other insurer that we talked to said, no, we won't insure your building. So I had to go to my investor and say, we got 30 days to get these things done, to get this work done. I'll take care of it and I'll figure it out. Now, the good news is that I already planted the seeds with our property manager that this was a project we wanted to take care of in the next 12 months. So he had already talked to some contractors, got some quotes. But I said, hey, we need this done in 30 days. Can you do that? And he was able to pull the trigger. So I had to go to my investor and say, look, we got to get this done. We got 30 days or we're not going to have insurance. So that's the other piece too is, you really have to prove yourself that you're worthwhile for an investor. But there's so many people out there that are going to value what you can add. And for right now, you may not know a lot, and that's okay, but you can learn a lot. And so it's finding those people that already value your word. You're hopefully somebody that you've earned a trust with people. And find a partner out there that maybe is more experienced for your first investment. So maybe you have somebody out there that wants to invest in real estate. So maybe you bring that person to an experienced investor, and you find a way to kind of get in on that deal and partner that deal as well. And so then you can get in and you can learn, and then maybe the next one you do yourself. And so I think there's the thing that really has been hard for me to get my head wrapped around is there's no right or wrong answer for how to do this investment thing. And so you've got to be open to to thinking creatively about how you could pursue some of these things. So if your goal is to go find an investment property or go partner with somebody, it takes a lot of work. It takes work to build relationships, but it's worthwhile. So um, I want to just pause for a second. I've got a plan here of where I'm going with this, but I just want to stop. Like, is there any questions that you guys have as you hear me talk? I'm kind of setting the foundation here for why invest, why think about investing long term. But yeah, question.
So question, before I ask the question, do you have a presentation coming up, or I don't want to jump it? Or is this just?
I don't have any slides, but
Okay, no problem. Just want to
yeah.
make sure. 'Cause
Sorry, I
sometimes-
didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know there was I didn't have any slides prepared, but I've talked about this at length, so I'm prepared for the hour. I know what I'm
No,
covering.
okay,
So
perfect. I
yeah,
just didn't want it. Sometimes I'll ask the question when it's in the
the
slide.
slide deck. Yep.
Yeah. So one of my questions is what is the best way to protect yourself as an investor who's investing with outside investors you don't even know? What's your best recommendation on vetting these people and finding these people?
Um, so you said the best way to protect yourself with investors you don't know.
To protect yourself and investors you don't know, do you start an LLC? How do you vet these people? Because, there are a lot of, investors out there that aren't very trustworthy, right? And when you're investing in, when I heard you talk about this apartment building, all I could think about was, how do you protect that investment from one, your monetary investment, two, from a legal point of view?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I think number one, I would start by saying get to know these people. And I think starting with so think about it as a bullseye, right? If I'm just getting started, like I want to have as safe as possible. I want to have as much as I can in the known. Um, and then over time, as you build and grow, you might be able to tackle more in the unknown. So I would say as you're getting started, think about like that bullseye. The people that I'm probably working with are the people I already know, right? The people you know, like, and trust, and they either know, like, or trust you. So we're starting there. Now, that being said, I can know people that can screw me over. So in some ways that doesn't matter. But you have a more likelihood of success if you're starting with people that you already have some sort of relationship with. So like for our first investor that partnered with us, it came out of we were looking for properties for him to purchase on his own. And through that conversation with him, we found out that it was a big piece for him to not have to take a lot of time to manage those properties. Now, most of the buildings that we help investors buy, there's already property managers lined up, or we give them a list of property managers to interview. So a lot of these investment properties aren't, hey, I'm going to go manage this myself, because a lot of the investors I work with are out of state, so they're not really capable of kind of managing it themselves. But through those conversations, we found out that this is, kind of more of what he was looking for. He was looking for something a little more plug and play that he didn't have to spend a lot of time on. And so then like we also found the right deal that was a fit for that. So what I would suggest here, so kind of finding ways to protect yourself from people you don't know, find out what people are looking for. So I tell people I'm kind of like your real estate investment matchmaker. I'm trying to figure out like what is it you're looking for? What is it you're trying to get out of it? And then I'll try to go find an investment deal that might be a fit for that. And so in this case, we had a good idea of what he was looking for. And when we found that apartment building, now keep in mind, we had never invested in an apartment building before. We had multifamily, but not a big apartment building, but we knew what he was looking for and we ran across the right deal. So kind of taking a half step back is you got to know when the right deal comes along. The way that you know the right deal comes along is you have to analyze deals. And so kind of the most foundational piece that I tell people, if you want to get into investment real estate, is you got to learn how to analyze deals to see what would be a good deal. And so I'd be happy to share, I don't know the best way to distribute this down the road, but I have a deal tracker that we use for all of our deals. And it's just you plug in the purchase price, the rents, the expenses, and all that, and it kind of spits out, monthly cash flow potential opportunity down the road. So it's really flexing that muscle. I tell people like if you're going to go into a gym and you've never worked out before, it's been a long time before you work out, you're not just going to go pick up the 100-pound weights, right? You're going to start with something small, right? So I don't go too hard the first day and then I can't move the next 2 days. You're going to start small. So the way to flex that muscle in investing in real estate is to analyze deals. And so it might not even be the deal you're going to eventually do. Like if I wanted to get into mobile home parks, I've never invested in mobile home parks before, but I'll start by analyzing single family homes, duplexes, maybe an apartment building. It's outside of the scope of maybe where I want to go, but I don't know enough about mobile home parks yet. But I've got MLS access and I can look at a heck of a lot of properties. And so I just start by looking at a single family home. And then two, I don't necessarily know what repair costs are going to be. So maybe I start with something that's a little bit more turnkey. And so every day it's just 5 properties I would analyze. Well, pretty quickly you do 5 properties a day in 2 weeks, and that's 5 days a week, not 7 days a week. Like now I've looked at 50 properties in 2 weeks time. I know a better deal than when I first started by just looking at 5 deals a day. And so it's starting to flex that muscle. So I'll kind of add the best thing you can do to start is to learn how to analyze deals. So now going back, Tanya, to your question is knowing what somebody's looking for, and I'm trying to find a fit. Now I know when I run across the right deal that I think's the right fit for that person. And so I sent it to him and I said, hey, here's a deal that I think could be a good fit. Is this something that you might be interested in working together with us? Now, the other thing is we have an attorney that put together an LLC agreement. We have an attorney that put together an operating agreement that talks about all those what if scenarios. And so at the end of the day, like you can't guarantee that a deal's going to work out. You can't guarantee that nobody's going to try to do anything bad to you. But at least you've covered your butt a little bit to talk about some of those what if scenarios. So in that operating agreement, it talks about what happens if we run out of money? What are we going to do? What happens if this happens or that happens? And so you've got an operating agreement and you've got an LLC that ultimately protects you from coming after your, affecting your own personal assets. So if this apartment complex were to blow up, the likelihood of anything ever happening to like my house is very, very small. And so that's where, yeah, you do want to have the right protection, but I think you also want to start with people that you at least have a good working relationship with. And then over time, that's going to change. So like this apartment deal, there was it's actually a dad of one of my kids' friends. We went over to his house and I went to drop him off because he was going to go play at his house. And he knew that I worked in real estate. And he said, hey, I've always been meaning to talk to you. I know you work within real estate and you work with investors. Like how does that work? And I was like, well, we can sit down and have coffee. And so come to find out, he has a single family home. He invests in himself. And kind of similarly to my story before, of there's all these people out there that want to invest that don't want to take the time to do it. He's like, well, like once I have this 5 unit, like if I go get another one, now it's just going to take a lot more of my time. And so I explained, I said, well, actually and in this case, I can't remember if we actually had found this property, or if we were almost had kind of run across this deal. We were actively looking for an apartment complex. But I said, hey, here's how this syndication thing works out. If it's something that's interesting to you, like here's what you can do. You basically put your money in, but you have to trust me and work with me. And then the thing that I'll say is somebody who accepts money from investors, that's not something I take lightly. Like this isn't, US Bank or Wells Fargo Bank giving me money. This is a person who this is the money they're planning on doing something with later in life. So I better do a good job with it. And, a lot of these apartment complexes you might have for about 5 years. It's kind of a standard thing where you kind of fix it up. It's kind of a slow flip, but you're fixing it up, adding value, and eventually selling it to give them their money back. Well, for 5 years, I have to look him in the eye and tell him where his money's at and tell him how it's doing. And so whether it's, our kids' football game, or something down the road, whether it's a formal investor meeting or informal, I got to look them in the eye for 5 years and tell them how this is going. And so that's something that I take a lot of pride in finding a good deal. So this isn't, oh, if something else happens, we'll just sell it and pay back, Wells Fargo Bank their money. So I will say, like, if you're going to work with somebody that's going to give you money, you better know your stuff enough to trust what you're telling people. And at the same time, I can't guarantee success. Like I said, that story with the apartment where, we had that hiccup with the insurance, but that investor knows when problems come up, I'm going to do my very best to try to fix it. And so that's where you're kind of hedging your bet. There's no guarantee that a deal's never going to go south. There's no guarantee that somebody's not going to try to screw you over, but start with that inner ring of the bullseye, the people like and trust already. And then over time you can kind of grow that out. But I wouldn't take money from a stranger right away that I wouldn't know, because I don't really know what they're looking for.
Yeah. So I do have another question about express offers.
Mm-hmm.
EXP has an express offer program where we can get express offer certified, and our investors can also, sign up on the portal. What is your experience with getting express offer certified? Have you used the portal, and how has it helped you with finding investment properties or working with investors?
I will say I started using express offers when I first started this. Um, but now I don't use it because I'm busy enough um, with investors that I know, finding them deals. One thing I would say that I think it's certainly a great starting point. And if you kind of identify what that buy box is and you find properties that can fit that buy box, great. Um, where I kind of find operational it to be a little bit slower is you've got to go out to the property and take all the pictures and fill out the form and submit it first. Um, that's a challenge in terms of time and being able to scale your time. And so I could go send my investor 10 properties on the MLS, or even off MLS. I will say a lot of our properties are on the MLS. So the myth of now that could just be my market. But don't settle for the myth of there's no good deals on the MLS. They're out there. I actually prefer MLS properties over off market because you can find information easier. You can get answers to your questions easier because the seller's motivated and the agent's motivated to answer your questions, versus off-market stuff. It's a challenge. So I can go on a separate tangent about that later. But in terms of express offers, I could send 10 properties to somebody and they could say, oh, out of these 10, this is the one or two that I like the most. And then I go look at that one and we write an offer. Versus express offers, I find the property, I take my time to drive out there, I take the pictures, I submit everything, and then it's a little bit of a challenge to know how to be able to scale that at a high level.
Hold on, he just froze. Is he the only one that froze? Am I frozen? No?
No.
Okay.
Express offers. I did get a couple of offers. The
Sorry,
offers weren't.
you just froze for like, I don't know, 30 seconds or something.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
He froze again.
Technology is so fun. Let's see if he comes back because I do have another question. And these, you guys, I'm going to be asking some really basic questions because I know a lot of you are not investors, right? You're new agents. So Mike, I'm going to ask you another question, just a basic question. So these are great questions for the intro to real estate investing. So my question is by the way, you just froze again. My question is when you're working with investors, you just mentioned that you do go after properties that are on the MLS, but are you proactive in going after NODs, foreclosures? Is that a strategy that you would recommend using?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I see the head nods. That's good. Once again, so when I froze, I kind of talked about trying to go after the path of least resistance. And so with express offers, I kind of felt like my time got bogged down submitting those properties and having those.
I love that he's talking about express offers.
Okay, so start with got bogged down in submitting those properties because you just froze again and you might be frozen again. Are you guys finding this information valuable? Anybody here?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Good, me too. So just if you guys could just be patient, bear with us. A lot of this information I know, but Mike?
Yes, I'm back now.
Yeah, you just
Sorry,
so
I switched off of my Wi-Fi, so hopefully we're better now. So
okay, well, so let's start with, right? When you are looking for investment properties, you mentioned that you go on the MLS, you like properties on the MLS. There's a myth that there's no good properties on the MLS. My question to you is, one of your strategies in helping your investors and helping yourself going after NODs or foreclosures.
yeah, so I don't do much of that, just because, like I said, I've kind of found through what's on the MLS and the relationships that I've built with. Now I have wholesalers that I've worked with. I've also had, other people that are doing kind of cash offer for homes type things. So I would say I've filled up my pipeline that way. And so one of the ways, like if you're looking to get started, is I tell people go join off-market Facebook groups, investor Facebook groups, and get on people's lists. Because there's a whole bunch of lists where when people find properties, they'll send them to you. And so that's really how I got started, is going in some of these groups and saying, here's the types of properties that I'm looking for. Now, the types of properties I was looking for is actually kind of what most of my investors were looking for. But then my email box is filling up with deals coming to me. And so like I had mentioned, this was maybe before while I was getting cut out, I try to follow the path of least resistance. Foreclosures are okay. They take more time. And so I was able to keep myself busy enough with properties that were more easily available and ready to close quickly. And so I haven't pursued that stuff, mainly just out of I've been able to keep myself busy without doing that. And so make no mistake, my email box is a junk drawer of deals that come to me. So there is a sifting and sorting. I tell people, like, I am still looking for the needle in a haystack. So make no mistake, it's not like, if there's 10 properties on the MLS, 9 of them are viable to purchase as an investment property. I'm still looking for the needle in the haystack, but when I'm on these buyer lists, there's a ton of properties coming to me. And then over time, I tend to see like, who maybe has the better deals out there, and who do I want to build relationships that can hopefully send me better deals. And so it's not that I haven't pursued the foreclosure or any of that stuff. It's just a matter of my time. I'm just focusing on kind of trying to find the highest and best use of my time. And for us, we've just been busy enough with what we've been able to find through the MLS and through the deal lists that we're on and building relationships. But now there's wholesalers out there that send us properties too, that work out pretty well. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. My next question would be, do you have an investment script or letter that you would send out? Obviously, right now you have a plethora of like properties and buyers and deals, but for people that are just getting started working with investors and they're pinpointing certain areas, do you have some sort of letter or script that you would send out to these homeowners that seems to catch their attention?
Yeah. So once again, kind of best use of time. I haven't taken the time to send out letters, but I've focused my time on identifying people in my database that I know are investors, and then going and trying to find them property. So one of the things that kind of resonated with me is now this, if you're working with residential people, which I'm sure most of you are, like, you don't have to fully take this to heart, but if I wanted to have 80 closings in a year, if the average person moves every 7 years, right? If I want to have 80 closings a year, like, I have to have this massive database of hundreds and thousands of people to get my 80 closings, right? If I focus on working with investors, what if I could just find 20 investors that want to buy 4 properties a year? Now I only have to have 20 relationships that I'm building. And now, make no mistake, I'm not there yet. So it's not like Mike's cracked the code in 2 years. No. But I thought, what if I could just find a few people that bought multiple properties a year? Now I'm building relationships. And so for me, once again, the mass mailings, using scripts, that's really not me. I'm just working with the people that I already know, like, and trust, and seeing how I can help them. So what my conversations look like to my database is, hey, have you ever thought about investing in real estate? What are you looking to get out of, what's retirement going to look like? What's the next 10 or 20 years going to look like? Like, what are your financial goals? And if I feel like real estate, because the spoiler here is, I think real estate's one of the best investments for people's money when you find the right deals. So people, stock market's fantastic. A lot of people make a lot of money in the stock market. Some people don't like that they don't have control over what happens. So if some idiot CEO, or C-level employee does something stupid, the top stock price goes down. People don't like not having control over things. And so, you know, people like a physical asset that they can go drive by and touch. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be in driving distance, but people really like that. And so what I'm looking for is, I know there's a ton of people in my database that have no interest in investing in real estate. That's fine. I'm looking for the people that do. And so I'm asking the questions like, what are you looking to do? How are you looking to build wealth? And have you ever considered investing in real estate? And if I start to see those kind of buying signs of I might be interested in real estate investing, well, then it's about education. So I'm helping them see, here's how real estate can solve the problem for you, what you're looking for. And so that's how I've kind of grown my businesses, through relationships like that. I'm an extreme introvert. So I hate reaching out and talking to people. I
You're
hate
not only
cold
an
call.
introvert, you're an extreme introvert.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah. So
great.
like the
Most
disc
of the time,
profile,
extreme introverts don't speak very well on camera.
I've also been doing a podcast for 3 years, and I've forced myself to get better at it by doing that. So I think,
Okay.
yeah. So like on the disc, I'm an I-15. So I tell people, that doesn't, like, I almost felt like I had to rationalize, like, that doesn't mean I don't like people. It just means I don't draw energy from talking to a lot of people. So I really focus on kind of, how can I go deep with people versus going wide. And so it's kind of finding those few right people that I want to, continue to help and help and help and help and help, versus this mass, kind of wide net strategy that I know a lot of agents do. And that's probably why I started to focus on working with investors, because I'm not a wide net guy. I like having a small
You
group
don't
of
like to have
people.
all the client parties and you don't like to do all the foofy things.
No, no. So, and with investors that are out of state, I don't have to have client events. So, because they couldn't even attend if they wanted to.
And you
So
don't have to go
outside
to
of
their
me paying for
weddings
it,
and their baby showers or anything like that.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I
So
love about what you just said was, you're asking the right questions. And what I love is when you're asking the questions is, right now people have more wealth in their houses than they've ever had. And a lot of people haven't thought about that. They think about investing, but they don't realize that the tool is their equity, like asking the questions, have you thought about investing? Have you thought about, buying a retirement home? Have you thought about investing in your kids' college education or through, buying a home for them? Have you thought about, helping your kids buy a home? Like a lot of people have this wealth, but they don't know what to do with it until we start asking clarifying questions.
Yeah. And another thing too is, do you have a 401k from a past employer that's just sitting there doing nothing right now? Because you can use a 401k through a self-directed IRA to invest in real estate. So the other Mike on my team, that's what he did for his parents. So his parents just retired this year, and they had a bucket of money in one of their funds that they put into an 8-unit apartment building that they own themselves. So they fully own it. They didn't do a syndication or anything like that. They fully own it, but it was through a self-directed IRA. And so showing them like, look, you can use your retirement savings that you've had for a 401k. Now it has to be most likely a job that they don't have anymore, because a lot of your 401ks won't let you sell if you're still working there or rolling it over. But how many people have switched jobs? A lot of people. So there's a lot of 401k money that's just sitting there for past employers that they can put towards real estate. And so, yeah, it's finding areas of opportunity that you can unlock for them. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm not trying to convince anybody to do anything they don't want to do, but I'm trying to show them options. So yeah, you're right. If you have equity in your home, well, what is that earning you right now? What if we took some of that equity and put it into a rental property that could pay cash flow down the road or grow more equity over time? I talk a lot about leveraged appreciation. So if you think there's a 400, so take an example, a $400,000 house, because there's a lot of investors out there that like to pay 100% cash for everything, right? So if I bought a $400,000 house and I put down all cash and that property appreciated by 7% a year, so 7% times 400,000, that's $28,000 per year that I would gain in equity. But I'm putting down $400,000 to get that $28,000. So my return on my money there, now this is not taking into account mortgage pay down, rents, or any of that, just appreciation. My return is 7%, right? Because I put down all $400,000 and I got 7% back. Well, if I buy a property with 25% down, I take that $400,000, I can now go buy 4 properties for $400,000, and that's $1.6 million of property that I can get for that same $400,000. And if it appreciates at 7%, because I only own 25% of that property, my return is actually 28%. And so what I tell people is the bank loans you that $300,000, the bank's not going to come back to you and ask for 75% of that appreciation that you made off the property. And so now that being said, I'm not telling people like, I'm not an extreme risk taker. Like you still have to be smart about it, but that's how leveraged appreciation can help you grow faster. So that's, what is that? $112,000 you can make with that $400,000 instead of $28,000. And so once again, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, but I'm showing them, here's what you can do with your money. Is that something that interests you? And I'm just asking that question, and they get to tell me the answer. If they're like, that sounds stupid, well, then I go find somebody else that's interesting, And if they're like, oh, tell me more, then I talk to them more.
Yeah, I love that you're asking those questions. And it just goes back to us being a consultant. So you guys, when you're sitting with a buyer or a seller, there is this thing called never assume. It's the four laws of agreement. Never assume they've never bought anything. Never assume that they're not a millionaire, right? They could be the millionaire next door driving the American car. So when you do sit down with them, you guys, and you have this buyer questionnaire and you get comfortable asking qualifying questions, that's where you're going to learn. Okay. Is this the first time you've bought a home? Have you invested before? Tell me about some of your real estate goals. Oh, you have homes here, here, and here. Okay. So tell me more about that. What are your long-term plans for that? Is there anything I can do to help you with that? Right. Because that's where, when you start asking those clarifying questions, that's when, kind of Mike's saying, right? Opportunities exist. But if you don't get to know your buyer or your seller or your friends or your clients when you're having these conversations, you'll never know if those opportunities are there. But you have to be comfortable asking the money questions and talking about the money questions. You don't have to know everything. You just have to ask the right questions. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, and I was just going to say one great example of this is kind of as we were shifting from residential to investors, and we were still working with residential clients. We had a single mom. She had, I think she's got 2 or 3 kids, and she wanted to sell her townhouse. And so the other Mike on my team said, "Hey, what if you instead of selling this, what if you found a renter, rented it out, and then maybe take out a home equity line of credit on this property because she had owned it for like 10 or 15 years, so she had a decent amount of equity." She said, "Use the equity as the down payment on your next property and continue to rent this property out." And so he cost himself a sale, right? He still got the buy side, but she ended up renting. I think her mortgage was like at $900 at the time. Keep in mind, she bought this like 2000 or something like that. So her mortgage is like $900. She was renting that out as a 3-bedroom townhouse for I think $2,200 a month. And so now she has $1,300 a month in cash flow coming in. And she's like, okay, this is, just a couple of months ago, she's like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I'm thinking maybe I get another property. And so the short term, he cost himself a sale, but he helped her and he showed her a different way. She still made the decision. She decided to take that risk, but he said, what if you could do this instead? And now she's got $1,300 a month coming in because she decided to hold that property and rent it out. Now, not every situation is going to be like that, but you have to think about it like I've got a toolkit here. When's the time when the screwdriver's the right tool? When's the time the hammer's the right tool? And I have to understand enough about investing in real estate or investing opportunities to kind of know which tool to pull out at which time or which question to ask at which time. And so whenever anybody comes to me, that's where I usually start with, well, what are you looking to do? Sometimes people watch, HGTV or they've seen some seminar and they think like this is the way that I have to invest to make money in real estate. There's 1,000 different ways you can invest in real estate to make money. So you just have to kind of ask some questions and find out what they're looking for. That's where I come back to. I tell people I'm the investor matchmaker. What are you looking for? And can I find something that's a match for that or not? But this isn't something that happened overnight. I've been doing this now for 2.5 years, pretty much full time. And I'm still not there. There's so much that I need to learn, but I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Well, then as I find more opportunities, I can find ways to insert myself into these deals to help. And that's where, like with this apartment building, I'm managing that asset through the property manager. So we're communicating to an investor. Here's the building, here's the vision of what's going to happen, and here's when we're going to sell down the road, and I'm executing that for them. And so I'm investing my own money into the deal, part of my own money into the deal, but I also have some equity that I have in the deal through my time, my knowledge, and my expertise of knowing what I'm doing. And so that's how I've kind of earned that opportunity by doing this for 2.5 years. And so it's not going to happen within the first month or two, but little bit of time invested is going to pay off into some of these cool deals that we're able to do down the road. So much so that now our goal is we're going to do between 4 and 6 of these apartments next year is what we're shooting for.
I love
yeah.
it. Okay, so we have 4 more minutes and there's a couple things. Gary has a question, and then I would like to hear about your mastermind and how real estate agents can invest. And then wanted to also let you guys know I just dropped 8 trainings in your email. And one is staying sane while working with investors. So the lingo, but Mike is an expert So Mike, actually, why don't you tell us about your mastermind first, and then let's have Gary come on and ask that question.
Yeah, and I see Gary, I can answer that too here. I see that on there. But yeah, so my mastermind is essentially agents around the country looking to get better at investing or working with investors. And so we meet every Wednesday at, is it 2 o'clock now? I have to decipher time zones for everybody. Yeah, so 2 p.m. Central Time. But I have investors in all time zones
Central
now.
screws everybody up, by the way.
Sorry. So that would be
So does
noon
Mountain. I'm Mountain.
Pacific, 1 Mountain, or 3 Eastern. We're in flyover country. We're used to accommodating everybody else that's not in the Midwest. But anyhow, so it's an hour every Wednesday. And so we just talk about topics like this. So a lot of it starts with going through deals. And so I walk through deals, I pull up my tracker and I screen share. Here's this property. Here's how we put this in. And so it's just building that skill set. And then two, it's folks asking questions or folks bringing deals that they have and talking about it. And so, so we meet every week. And for right now, we still have it free. We're looking for a group of people that are committed to doing this regularly. I tell people it's not required to attend, but it's more than just like, hey, I'm going to come on every couple of months. Because what we want is people that really want to learn and grow. And so, to be honest, we've had a lot of agents that have come on for 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, and then they're like, "Oh, this takes too long." Like this isn't a get rich quick thing for making money through investing in real estate. It's time on task over time. So if you're committed to coming in, investing the time, learning and networking with other people, there's a great opportunity out there. That short-term rental that I mentioned in New York directly came out of that group because there was an agent out there. She runs short-term rental properties, and she said, "Hey, I've got this deal." And it actually turned out nobody else was on the call that week. This was in June. So she talked to Mike and I and said, "Here's this deal I have." It was so Wednesday. We presented the deal to an investor that we knew was a fit. Wednesday and Thursday, wrote an offer, and it was under contract on Sunday. And so that's where the right deal at the right time can come along. And so that was a deal that came out of that. But a lot of people, just to be honest, will come on and be like, "Oh, we're gonna analyze a deal again. Oh, I want to learn something new." Well, right? Like I want to go learn how to lift 500 pounds, but how do I lift 500 pounds? I start by lifting 50 pounds and then 100 pounds. And so it takes time. And so if this is something where long term you're like, this is the path I want to go on, I'd love to have you on, and you can come on and learn and learn those skill sets. But then too, we talk about things like 1031 exchanges. So we have a client, it's an agent down in Houston that's working with a client that inherited a property. Well, if you want to do a 1031 exchange, for those that don't know, it's a way to be able to purchase real estate without having to pay capital gains taxes. And so you can save a lot of money by doing it that way. If it fits with your plan and where you're at. So we had a session, we talked about that. We talked about kind of going back to taxes. There's things called a cost segregation study where you can reduce your tax threshold. So we're doing cost segregation studies on our apartment complexes that lowered my taxable income by $75,000 last year. That's important to know. But coming on a free mastermind and learning, oh, that's good. It takes too long. I'm not willing to invest that time.
Wait, you're
But
saying it's free? It doesn't cost anything?
Yep. I have it. If you go to the website, it'll say it's charged. I'm doing it I'm just right. I'm not the mass marketer. I'm not the mass person. I'm just growing it through relationships with people. And so for right now, it's free. Down the road, we'll eventually charge, but I want to provide great value for people and finding the group of people that are committed to growing. So yeah, so it's free right now. So honestly, the best way is to just email me, Mike at Real Freedom. It's REL freedom.com. Just email me and then we can chat. I'd love to before you're in the group, like I have a conversation and kind of figure out like, what are you looking for? How can I help you? And see if it's a good fit. But then, yeah, it's just a weekly mastermind and we talk through topics and help people get better. And it's just time on task over time.
I love it. So could you please answer Gary's question?
Yeah.
Question
So
is, on the syndications you mentioned, what are the projected returns, term that people have to be in, and the extensions of time. Is there an accreditation requirement on your syndication?
Yeah, so real quick, this is my little piece on syndication. So if we're in an LLC together, so if I say, hey, there's 2 or 3 people, we want to do this investment deal together, think about it like we're all sitting at the table together, right? Everybody has a role. Everybody's doing something. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to split all their roles equally, but that's typically how like a traditional LLC for a property works. We're going to all work together. What makes a syndication different is I'm essentially selling a security to somebody. And so think about it as we're on opposite sides of the table. So you've got the GP side, which stands for general partner, and then the other side of the table is the LP, which is the limited partner. So that's where I talked about before, like my son's friend's dad, he can't have a role because he's an LP, he's a limited partner, so he can't make a decision about the property. He's basically just putting up his money. So that's what makes syndications different. But for some people that don't want to be involved, that's the beauty of it, right? I don't have to do anything outside of trust you, trust the deal, and kind of put my money into that. So that's what a syndication is. Now, what he was talking about accreditation requirements. So there's 2 types of syndications. One is it's called a 506B. A 506B allows any investor to be a part of the deal, regardless of how much money you have. So to become an accredited investor, you have to have requirements of the amount of income you make or your net worth. Because it's like you're selling a security, they feel like an accredited investor is kind of like a bar where you're not like pulling the wool over on somebody's eyes, right? Like a Ponzi scheme, right? Like I'm not trying to take advantage of this poor person that doesn't know how to invest in real estate and take their money, right? So they feel like we've kind of have this bar, which is called an accredited investor. So there's a syndication. So 506C only allows you to take money from people that meet those accredited investor requirements. And so with that deal, with a 506C, you can market this property. So if you've ever seen like Grant Cardone's a great example, like I got this, 500 unit property in Miami, and if you want to invest, reach out to me, right? That's a 506C for accredited investors. A 506B, you can take accredited investors, but non-accredited investors, that's the only way they can participate. The unique thing about that is you can't publicly market that. So you will never see me posting on Facebook, hey, I've got this property that I'm looking to, this apartment building. Who wants in? Reach out to me. I've got this deal. Here's the deal. I can't do that as part of a 506B. It's really working through relationships, right? I feel like this is like an introvert extrovert conversation here. Here's why Mike's such a big introvert. I like that because it's people I already know, like, and trust that I've worked with before that are investing their money. So a 506B, anybody can invest. So you had agents on our team, scraping by. This is a tough market for them. They can invest in this deal if they want. So that's kind of that whole breakdown. Going back to projected returns, the general rule of thumb that I hear when I talk to syndicators is double your money in 5 years. That's kind of what we're shooting for, is to find properties that is about a 14-15% return so you can double your money in 5 years. So we're looking for deals better than that. But you'll hear kind of that's the general rule of thumb that they use. Term really depends on the deal. If it's an apartment building, a lot of times you're looking for probably 3 to 5 years to be able to be in that, because it's, for a lot of people, like I said, it's you purchase it, you add value, and you sell it. Takes time to flip a 25 unit property if there's already tenants in there. So pretty much anytime a tenant turns, you're updating that unit, but it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Did you guys like this information? Will you guys text me? Text me. I would love for you to text me now or right after. Tell me what was your biggest takeaway so I can let Mike know. And it looks like, per Mike is focused on the triangle, right? The time, money, the expertise, get to know people, learn the lingo, right? ask more
analyze
clarifying
deals.
questions. Yes.
Learn how to analyze deals. And I can send you,
Yes.
maybe I just email you the deal calculator and you can
Yeah,
pass
if
it
you
out,
email
or
that, I
you
can email it out to them. Learn
Yeah.
how to analyze deals, right? And most importantly, you know, go out there and you have to start somewhere, just like he did, right? Don't be
Mhm.
intimidated. You guys got to know the lingo. I sent you guys just 8 classes on that. Having a free mastermind. If you're working with investors, Dee Dee, right? You guys should, Michaela and Nayeli, you guys are in a huge investment area. So Grant Cardone went to Pueblo. I don't know if you heard about that, Pueblo, Colorado, right? He went incognito and said, I don't know, can I make $1 million with nobody knowing who I am? These ladies live in Pueblo. So there's huge investment opportunities down there. So if you guys as young realtors learn how to work with investors, this is a huge opportunity for the two of you. So I would encourage you guys to really you know, engage in this mastermind. So anyhow, thank you so much, Mike. This was so valuable. I'm excited about this. If you send me a flyer, just send me a flyer of the times and stuff. I will send that out with your
Mastermind.
property analyzer.
Oh, the analyst. Yep. Yep.
And then I'll share it with all of my groups. And maybe I'll hop in there as well at some point. So thank you so much, you guys. If you have any questions, reach out to Mike, reach out to me. I'll send all that information. And if you're watching to the end here, we have classes like this every Tuesday. We have another listing class coming up. We have my friend Lonnie that's coming up, who is going to talk about invest. She's a woman that learned how to invest and build her wealth as a Black woman, coming from no money, going through divorce, and being the biggest REO realtor in San Diego County. So this is a really good segue into that as well. So thank you guys, and have a good day. Thanks, Mike.